Hey guys, week 5, Thursday's video. Today we're going to talk about topic and concluding sentences and conclusions specifically. Then for Friday, I'm going to talk about some grammar elements. A lot of you have been struggling with some introducer commas, so I'll focus on that in particular. For the beginning of this video, topic and concluding sentences, I asked you to do this free write for Wednesday, and I'm going to show you the correct order. I will have already answered your writing responses. And again, please be patient with me returning stuff to you guys in a timely manner. My internet's still not working, so that's awesome. Anyway, we shall power on. So here is essentially the answers for the worksheet I had you do. So let's talk through them a little bit. Obviously, they were not in order. You answered down here. So sentence number 3 is the first sentence. This is the topic sentence. A good way to kind of tell is you look for a transition, first off. So however would be our transition, and that's transitioning from the previous paragraph. Remember that topic sentences link paragraphs together. So this paragraph, by using the word however, the transition however, the author's saying that this paragraph will provide contrast to or some sort of disagreement to the previous paragraph. All right, however, despite all of those arguments, so those arguments are obviously the ones that this author has just previously mentioned, there are still yet more people that argue that Planned Parenthood should be government funded and, in fact, say it should receive more funding from the work it does. So that is a clear argument / a stakeholder that this paragraph is going to discuss. So the next sentence that we have, Planned Parenthood provides services for over 2,700,000 patients, men, women, and young adults in the past year. They provided services. So here we have a little bit of verb inconsistency. Like I said, these are real student papers, so they still have some issues, but they're strong examples for the time being. They provided services to people from all walks of life, but their predominant patient list, 78%, is made up of patients living with incomes at or below 150% of the federal poverty level. Planned Parenthood receives most of their payment through Title X and Medicaid, and yet they have quality health care with doctors that will care for a woman or man going through many difficult issues. Okay, and then we have our citation here. So again, based on the source videos that I've already made many of, the author would be smart to actually put a citation, not an in-text citation, but an introduction here, because these words are her own. And then all of this comes from the source, all right? And then she does have an in-text citation here, but because there are 3 sentences within the same summary, she should have some sort of introduction to let us know that she's starting to use source not from her own head or from common knowledge. All right, and then we have a concluding sentence here. So because of this, many would agree that Planned Parenthood needs to continue to be funded to support these lower income women that have every right to affordable, compassionate health care. All right, so this ties back to her thesis statement, and she's arguing about, obviously, Planned Parenthood and funding at the government level. So that's the order, and it's a little tricky in this midsection here. And also these 2 sentences you might mix up because they do have transitions in both of them. The main thing is the citation. It would be a little clearer if we had a citation here as well as an in-text citation here, which, prevents plagiarism. And then all of your, the logos of all of your information in this middle part here. All right, if you got it, great. If you didn't, obviously it's not really going to count against you. I just wanted you to kind of have more practice with topic sentences and concluding sentences, specifically these yellow parts. So obviously every part of this paper will be scrutinized and really inspected by me, because this is the style of paper that you'll probably be doing more so in your other courses and also in English 102. You will have another research paper sort of like this. So topic sentence, have those 3 things that we've already mentioned. Support your information effectively and responsibly. And then your concluding sentence should answer the so what question. Why does this information matter? Why should I, as the reader, care about this information? All right. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the 4 stakeholder paper conclusions, the samples that I've already put online, and it will hopefully help you guys get a better idea of what to include in your conclusions. So again, I've said many times that conclusions often contain like a little bit of summary. I don't have amnesia, so I will have already read your paper, and then you don't need to re-summarize the entire paper again in the conclusion. So I would say just like one sentence, one nice clear sentence that reiterates your thesis statement. That should be about 1/3 or just one sentence of your conclusion, depending on the length. The other part of the conclusion, that 2/3, should be a solution, a prediction, consequence. Those are the top 3 things that students often write about of your argument. So this is really where you drive home the point that readers should agree with your point based on all of the reasons that you have provided. You have acknowledged the opposition, but now you pointed out their flaws and how my team and your personal argument or your personal stake, your personal section, how all of that gives you credibility and is presented in a way that makes sense and a way that has some emotional appeal from the audience. All 3 of those things tied together to persuade your reader. Okay, so this is from stakeholder paper 2. And it's the one about technology in the classroom versus humans in the classroom as teachers. So I'll just let you read it real quick, and then we can dissect it a little bit together. Okay, so this is actually a good example of a conclusion that summarizes a little bit too much. So you may or may not have read this sample paper, but pretty much up to here, this is all summary. So we have a flip of what I just described, where this is like 2/3 summary and 1/3 consequence. So this sentence here, I would recommend to the author to elaborate on this part here, the consequence of computers taking over human teacher jobs, and what this slow slip actually means. And I would question the author in terms of this outcome without respect for adults or authority. So I would say maybe provide an example of that or be more specific with that, and then condense all of this. Okay, so this is a great paper, weak conclusion and not a super strong introduction, but this student had really great research and really great body sections, so that uplifted the paper, all right, because it's all a balancing act. Let's look at this. This is probably a paper that more people read. It's the sample stakeholder paper 1 over young girls who read magazines and look at magazine covers. So again, I'll give you about a minute to read it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so As we see here, we have a little bit different structure. The middle section is more summary. Highlight that for you. I would say that this is mostly summary, and it's not too overpowering, but the author could condense it a little bit more. This is a great addition here. So you can begin your conclusions with quotes. You can end them with quotes that kind of play into the overall summary of your paper and its idea. This here is also like a prediction or a solution, more so a solution that the author is offering. I would say maybe one or two more lines about this solution that she's offering, keep this perfectly, and maybe cut down one sentence in the middle here. So this, I would overall, is a pretty strong conclusion. There are just a few things to really get that professional before you start revising for the final portfolio. All right, so I'm not going to have you read this one. It's the third stakeholder paper about horse slaughtering. And this author, the last two papers actually use subheadings, which again, I recommend to a lot of you. She put dialogue. I'm not exactly sure why she used that term, but it works in terms of now I'm going to discuss with the reader everything that I've just discussed, kind of gleaning a meaning from it, a discussion section. So she has 3 paragraphs here, which is great. I mean, they're not giant chunks of information. A lot of you, I keep saying break your paragraphs apart because it's hard for the pacing of the paper and also for readership at times. And also you just change topics. So there should be a natural paragraph break there as well. So she has 3 sections here. She ends it with a lot of questions down here. So this is obviously talking about consequences. If this continues, what are we going to do? She leaves it actually open for the reader to decide. In this paper, you should not leave it open. You should close the actual argument. So, and by close the actual argument, I mean make a decision on it. So whether it's ethical or effective or non-effective, which side are you on? Okay, we need to know by the end of the paper because you're trying to persuade us. You're trying to get us to join your argument. And then the last one real quick, she again had another subheading, final remarks. You don't need to subhead your conclusion, but if you want to, if it feels right whenever you are constructing your paper, and if you use subheadings, then obviously go ahead and add it. All right, so she has some more questions in here. I believe just one. And this was probably the strongest one because she does not summarize her paper more so than she adds information like consequences and predictions. She's talking about the First Amendment, which she had already mentioned in her paper, but she's elaborating on what she had already brought up. Okay. So again, these are not perfect papers. They are really strong ones though. And keep working on yours. So the schedule for the end of the semester for next week, I probably won't make a video every day. I'm going to look more so at issues that are common for all of you guys, all of the classmates, all of your classmates. And we're going to be doing more grammar stuff. So honestly, look through your writing responses and your papers, and whatever you have, whatever I've repeatedly commented on, like passive voice versus active voice, you should be, at the end of this class, you should have knowledge of what that is, and actually in your final portfolio, you should correct those things. Because the final portfolio, I'm looking for improvement. I'm looking for revisions. I take a lot of time to respond to your guys' writing and to give you feedback and to really contemplate these things and try to catch the patterns of error that you have. So I expect you to do like a lot more work. It should be 80% on you and 20% on me. Okay, so pay really strict attention to those comments that I have already given you. And the final week, you will have until that Friday to get everything put together for your final portfolio. So I would say right after you turn in your stakeholder paper, start working on revisions if you haven't already. So I know it's fast, but you guys can do it. And we'll do a grammar video for Friday.